Oh dear, we appear to have a bit of a casualty under the Metropolitan. What's going on? Welcome to Lot 76 Cars. My name is Simon. Today we're at the fabulous BMC and Leyland Show at the British Motor Museum. Hope you enjoy the cars we see, and let's try and have a chat with a few of the owners as well. So this is an unusual one to start with. It's an Austin Victoria, so it looks like one of the derivatives produced for the Spanish market. I thought these were produced as the Austin Apache as well. Lots of recognisable features on that C-pillar. Looks a bit like a Dolomite, looks a bit like an ADO 16, but in fact it's not. You can't quite place it, can you? Got a touch of Triumph at the back. Got a beautiful interior in this car, hasn't it? Absolutely lovely. Lots and lots of legroom in there, passenger and driver, and a fair bit in the back. That's absolutely lovely, isn't it? So this time we've actually got an Apache, which is a South African car. Looking at a registration plate, and it's right-hand drive rather than left-hand drive. Again, similar in silhouette. Lots and lots of cars you recognise in there but can't quite place. This one's also open. This one's not got the velour interior, it's got the more, let's have a look, interesting plastic seats. Perhaps not too great when it gets warm. Oh, that's lovely, isn't it? Absolutely fabulous to see these cars here, and especially see them two together. I think I've only ever seen one of these in the past anyway. Lovely. So there's always a birthday coming up with the Leyland and BMC cars, and this year's no exception. We've got ADO 17 is celebrating its 60th birthday. 60 years, yes. Now these were nicknamed the Landcrab because of the wide track. Some comment that was made by a journalist looking at the cars from overhead going sideways as well. Who knows what the truth is, but they are incredibly spacious cars. This was BMC's large car back in the day. This one has got an incredible amount of space up front, quite deep in the footwell there. Actually, the sills are quite big. Look at the selector for the automatic gearbox on the dashboard there. Well, it just fills lots and lots of space, doesn't it? And certainly being in this layout, front wheel drive layout, it doesn't lose anything in terms of being spacious. Let's just take a look in the back and see what they're like in the back as well. And I did ask the owner, by the way, and look at that, there's a massive amount of legroom. You can see why other BMC cars used things like the doors from the Landcrab as well. And if that wasn't enough, you've got a decent old boot on the back of it, so quite a usable car, and there's a fabulous turnout of them here today. So also here to celebrate the birthday is a Landcrab police car. So this one was actually operated, I believe, by Durham, operated by a number of forces in the UK. I didn't know that, I must admit, until today. And at Home Office request, they asked them to experiment with this sort of more American police livery with the black wings and the white doors. And this one, I think originally they had twin carbs. I think the gentleman was saying twin carbs, and this one might have been, the engine might have been changed, but that's brilliant, isn't it? What a great piece of history that is. So if the standard Wolseley 6 isn't long enough for you in normal Landcrab form, what about this extended wheelbase version here? So you've still only got 4 doors, but it looks like they've actually just taken the back doors and all the length is in the rear quarter of the car. What an incredible amount of space, whether this was a chauffeur car, a funeral car, or in this case a white one being a wedding car, who knows. It's got the obligatory vinyl roof covering up probably the welds to make it a bit longer, but that's lovely, isn't it? So the last car to bear the Austin name was the Montego, following a year after the Maestro. Came in 1984, so celebrating its 40th. And this used, I think, modified Maestro doors. I think David Batch, who was responsible for many iconic designs, was involved in this to some extent as well. And this one's lovely. This is a Van den Plas, so VDP version, lovely place to be inside. This particular one's a 2-litre 1985 car, pre-fuel injector. We'll just take a look inside and just see. It's a manual. It's got those lovely wood cappings on the door. That sort of typical instrument binnacle of the period there. Let's take a look at that. Beautiful blue trim. It's in great order inside, to be honest with you. And actually, it does look in VDP form an absolutely lovely place to be, doesn't it? What a beautiful car. That extended glass area at the back with a rear window, and that was their Sierra competitor back in the day. So by 1990 the Montego had been out for 6 years and it deserved a bit of a refresh, and also this is about the time it lost the name Austin and moved to Rover, and it gained things like, from a styling perspective, different bumpers, and you'll also notice that two-tone paint effect there as well. So very subtle, but did keep the car rolling forward for a few years longer. So you don't see too many Montego estates, and you don't see too many that are film stars. So this one actually appeared in The Crown, driven by the actress who played Camilla. And the other one here actually appeared in The Crown, driven by I think Lady Romsey. So this particular one, this 2-litre HL estate, is an 86 registered but 85 model, so I think in launch year. And in zircon blue, it looks absolutely wonderful. What a brilliantly usable estate it is. I think it's one of the only survivors of the original launch spec. Massive load area at the back. We're going to have a chat with Ian, who owns the vehicle, and just get a bit more history on it. So let's go and do that now. So Ian, you've got this early Montego estate. Tell us about it, because it's a bit special, this one, isn't it, in many ways?
In many ways, yes. It was owned by the same family for 32 years.
Wow.
I've got all the paperwork for it.
Okay.
And then last year, no, just the year before, it was used for the filming of The Crown, where it was Lady Romsey's car.
Okay.
And so this door has been touched by Jonathan Price.
Okay, well,
priceless.
Well, it is priceless, isn't it? That's a good one. Yeah, I'll have to remember that one.
But,
and it's a very early car, isn't it? Because not so many survive this early.
No, it's actually registered 86, but made in 85.
Okay.
And so it's the last of the first spec 2-litre HL.
And you've had it from new, or you've
No. The family owned it for 35 odd years, and I've had it for 4 years.
Oh, great.
And it's done 44,895 miles.
Yeah, so it's not quite a high mileage hero, is it?
No, but it's lovely, gorgeous, flexible, carburetted 2-litre engine. So it's a lovely car to own.
Yeah, no, thank you very much for telling us about it. Much appreciated. Thank you, Ian. So the legend that is the designer Richard Woolley had a long career at Rover, and he went on to help with the reskin, or design the reskin I should say, of the Honda Accord to generate the far better looking Rover 600. I'm an incredible admirer of his work. These were actually really special places to be, and they outsold the Honda by a huge proportion. Pretty nice places to be, roverized inside, lovely leather and wood trim. Super looking cars. Eventually replaced, arguably a little bit too early, by the Rover 75. So Rover 75 wasn't ready, and production of these cars actually finished too early, and they ended up with a situation where they had quite a gap between having a car in the fleet market. So beautiful, nice to see it. An Austin Gypsy. It might look like a Land Rover, but it's absolutely not. That's rare to see one of those these days, and very mistaken from the distance for a Land Rover. So Allegros, we've got quite a few of them. What's that one? That's in russet brown, I think. Next to it we've got the Allegro 3. I think that one's a HL. It's got the twin lamps at the front, as you can well see. Then we've also got quite a few later cars here today as well, and that lovely red example which is purring away there. Great to see the Allegros out in force today, isn't it? So Roy Haynes, a Ford designer who designed the Mark II Cortina, was recruited, I think, back to BMC and then Leyland Cars to, or one of the projects was to design the Marina in '71. With very little changes from his initial design, he actually introduced the Marina. And we forget the Marina was an incredibly strong seller back in the 70 sales charts. We've got the later coupe, I think the equipped version here. Look at the stripes on that. If you like stripes, the stripes even continue to the inside here as well with the upholstery. That's going to be a pretty rare car. Special, well, it says special on it. Well, it certainly is, isn't it? So the Morris Ital. Now this one, in actual fact, I think this was the last car to bear the Morris name. A bit of a theme developing today. So although it's called the Ital after the Italian styling house, it is a moot point as to how much work they actually did, because allegedly Harris Mann, the designer of the TR7 and of the Allegro, actually did much of the work himself apparently. MG Montego Turbo, 150 brake horsepower from a Garrett T3 turbocharged O Series engine, and that one looks absolutely beautiful. So this 1975 coupe is in Brooklands green, and it does half bring back some memories. I had a white one, not quite as late as this. I think mine was a 74 or 75, and certainly not as in good condition as this one. Interestingly enough, there was a bit of cost saving here, because look at the doors there. They used the doors from the normal four door rather than develop a longer door, so from some angles it might look a bit incongruous. Obviously those Mina door handles that went on to be used on many other cars, including I think Lotus Esprits. And inside, well, it's a pity you can't overlay this video with the smells, because it just smells 1970s in here. Wow. What great memories. Vinyl seats, who needs cloth, who needs leather? Brilliant. Absolutely great to see that here today. Fond memories for many people. So this is the Metropolitan, never actually called the Austin Metropolitan, but back in the 1950s, Austin of England, as they were called then, were actually commissioned by the Nash Car Company of the USA to build them a small car that would be suitable for the female market. Now, incredible looking cars. It looks sort of stateside but miniaturized, doesn't it? It wasn't particularly a success. It was sold in this country, hence he's a right-hand drive, but never actually badged as Austin, just simply sold as the Metropolitan. Well, that looks glorious inside there, doesn't it? They are an incredible taste of Americana, miniaturized, whichever one you see, and I'm drawn to this one here. There's such a level of detail goes into them. You've got the tyre on the back, spare tyre. We've got that lovely external boot handle there. This one's got the full drive-through experience. It's got the burger and fries ready to go there. Doesn't that look an absolute treat? I don't know what they drive like, but they absolutely look amazing, don't they? Beautiful. So the Maxi was spacious, useful, but unfortunately in some ways compromised by the fact it had to use the doors from ADO 17, the Landcrab, to save money. So the central part of the body is far longer than it should actually be for a car in that segment. Now in actual fact it gave it pretty class leading space in the back for a car in that segment, and also it had quite a lot of innovation. Back in the day it came with a 5-speed gearbox, so that was problematic initially. That gearbox went on to be installed, I believe, in the Lotus Elite, ironically enough. That's a beautiful example of a later car. That would be what, a 1977 on the R. Great. What can you say that hasn't been said about the Morris Minor? Well, probably little. Probably one of the most familiar classic cars on the road today, still survive in reasonable numbers. Production ran from I think 1948 right through to something like 71, 72. Codenamed Mosquito and designed by the legendary Sir Ali Kisigonis. And didn't he do a great enduring job with that particular car to have a life that went so long, obviously with relatively small changes. I think 3 body styles. We've got some of the other ones here. We've got the Traveller, we've got the convertible as well. So carefully parked a little bit away from the main show is this beautiful MGB GT. I think the Roadster came first, and I think the MGB GT followed. I believe it's a Pininfarina design. This one has a pre-facelift. Obviously later on, as everybody knows, they got the rubber bumpers, but to me some of the cleanest looking ones are the early cars. And doesn't it absolutely pop in that primrose yellow? If you know the official BMC colour for that one, feel free to put it in the comments and we'll all learn something. But it looks absolutely beautiful, doesn't it? So the Mini, by this time sold by Rover Group, was already hitting its 40th birthday back in 1989, and as a fitting celebration it produced a number of these special edition cars, some in burgundy and some actually like this particular one in black. This one's in great order, isn't it, really? On a G plate, as you'd expect, sold within the year of the launch of this particular vehicle. Got some lovely bespoke badging on there. And oh, it's got a pair of Goodman speakers in the back. Wow, it ticks a lot of boxes, that car, doesn't it? So this Mini is a bit special. It's affectionately called Mildred, and it was built in 1962, 3 years after the launch of the car in the UK, and it was built from CKD, so complete knockdown kits for the South African market. So I guess there's quite a bit of detail changes. I'm absolutely loving that beautiful Old English white over blue colour scheme. It looks an absolute treat, doesn't it? So this Austin Cambridge, I just saw it come in now, I heard it come in, it absolutely purrs. It's a 29,000 mile car. Yeah, you heard that right, 29,000 miles if I can get it right. Example, a former museum piece. It's in stunning order. Obviously the Farina design that was so popular back in the day. We'll just take a look inside. There's quite a fair bit of space there. Thankfully it's got a floor mounted gear change. It's got the handbrake in the towards the right of the driver's seat, and it's an absolute stunning looking car, really. That's all you can say. The bodywork is immense. Well, I guess it would be if it's been in a museum. So these special edition Rover V8 S's, I think, were primarily for the American market because they came with air conditioning. I love that original colour scheme, these that sort of limeish green metallic with gold wheels. Yeah, that was what it came with. Oh, it's even got wipers on the lights as well, although they're well hidden. Beautiful looking interior. That dashboard I think could easily be moved and produced for left and right hand drive because it's got the binnacle on top which you can move across. It looks absolutely lovely, doesn't it? Factory sunroof. What a stunning looking car. Beautiful, beautiful colour that one is, isn't it? So reminding me of a 1970s bathroom suite colour is this beautiful Avocado Series 1 SD1. Designed by David Back. It's got the hints of Ferrari Daytona there at the front. What a great job he did with the design of that car. And this one is a true survivor, isn't it? Another beautiful looking Rover SD1. Something about these cars, isn't it, just works. So these don't seem to get a lot of airtime, you rarely see them. It's a Morris Oxford 1500. I think a version of this went on to be built in India as the Hindustan Ambassador. I think I'm right with that one. For many years, only seems fairly recent that they stopped producing those. It said, "You may pass me, but will you outlast me?" Well, I wouldn't like to challenge that one. Not for a car from the 50s. So this is the Gerald Palmer designed Wolseley 1550. His designs, I think he designed the Riley Pathfinder. Some commonality with these, because if you look at this strip along the door, some lovely features, how that handle actually runs into the strip. The really neat. A lot of these, in fact this one actually nearly met its end on the Banger racing track back in the day. Thankfully it survived, and it's a very stylish looking 50s saloon, isn't it? So this is a Leyland Sherpa van, and the reason I'm starting with the side view is that some of you may recognise that from the J4 van, and the actual platform underneath it is from the JU. So back, I think in the late 60s, early 70s, BMC were losing market share with their van range to Ford. The Transit had been launched, and they decided to commence on the development of a new replacement van. But in, I guess, general British Leyland theme, they didn't have any money, so a new van would have cost 8 million, and this parts bin special cost 1 million to develop. It's got the 1800 engine, I think, from the Landcrab. It's got a speedo instrument cluster from other things. I think it's also probably got the doors from the J4 as well, looking at this. But despite all of this, it actually went on to be a continued seller in the Leyland vans range, and actually sold very well into the public sector. Incredible van, really pleased to see that late 1975 vehicle there today. Brilliant. So the Austin Princess, and next to it we've actually got the later Ambassador, which finally the car got a hatchback, which for bizarre reasons back in the day, competing with other brands in the lineup, they refused to engineer in. So by the end of production, the car was actually what it always should have been, re-engineered into a more useful hatchback. That fabulous wedge shape remains unchanged from the Harrisman original design, and probably finally these wedges are getting the level of appreciation they should be, because they look actually quite dynamic, don't they? Launched in 1980 under the tagline, "A British car to beat the world," Michael Edwards signed off development of the Metro, and it was a rave success. So many people learned to drive in these cars, including me. That traditional whine from the gearbox, honestly they're fond memories and quite a useful little hatchback. So what is this, I hear you cry? Well, it's a one-off ADO 16 prototype built by Jensen as a convertible, as a proposal for BMC. The proposal subsequently was rejected as it was going to cost too much money. It was going to be too expensive for BMC to market. But what it did leave us with is this legacy of an ADO 16 convertible. I'd never seen one before. I saw this car arriving in. Now the current owner bought it from a postman who'd spotted it in a garden back in the 1970s or 80s. And it's been an absolute labour of love over the last 3 years to rebuild it, and isn't it magnificent? I am absolutely blown away by that one. So clearly very well engineered. That rear boot panel is a part of it, is a traveller boot, but the rest of it, what a job they've done with it, haven't they? Well, that's my car of the day, I think. So this little beauty is an Allegro LE in Astral Blue, apparently. Came back from Jersey, had a couple of owners I think in between times, but it's stunningly original. Again, it's got those stripes. The LE had things like fog lamps. It's got a 5-speed gearbox, believe it or not. Doesn't it look an absolute treat? I'm really liking that one. Lovely. So if you watched my videos before, you may have seen this once before, a local regional show. It's one of 37 workshop vehicles built to train technicians on front-wheel drive by BMC and then used by Leyland. This particular one came back from Canada and it's been put on British Leyland special tuning service livery, and doesn't it look a treat? Now it's got some lovely features on the back of it. Clearly you can load a couple of minis will fit in the back, but look at the Farina lamps it's got on the back of it there. So they really did take this to new heights. They could have actually designed something that was more workmanlike, but actually they put a bit of style into it. It looks an absolute treat, doesn't it? So this is the last car actually made by Daimler, sometimes wrongly called Dart, which is a name that had to be abandoned due to litigation. It's a Daimler SP250, actually developed in fiberglass to speed up tooling and some issues on tooling costs. In actual fact, it was a commercial disaster. There was a proposal due to be launched for a successor, the SP252, but it never actually made it. under the ownership then of Jaguar, who were seeking more production capacity. The SP250 then simply faded away and wasn't replaced. The styling is, well, you know, it's different, let's put it that way, but they do survive quite well, and that one's lovely, isn't it? So the Harrisman designed TR7, built in 3 different plants. I think that must be a record. I think it was Speke, Solihull and Canley. This one is a bit different because it's a Sprint. Now I don't know whether these went into full production in limited numbers or they were just prototypes, but the Sprint uses the running gear, or at least the engine, from the Triumph Dolomite Sprint, the 16 valve engine, which would make a lot of sense. That's absolutely lovely. Next to it we've got the convertible, which came quite late in life. That looks like a 1980. The convertible styling to me actually probably works the best. Love that check plaid interior. That's a very pretty looking convertible, isn't it? I just love that. So one of the first production 16 valve vehicles, engineered using support from Coventry Climax, tested around Myra at 160 miles an hour or something back in the day. It is a Dolly Sprint. These could have been absolute giant killers. They were giant killers back in the day in saloon car racing, and you know, really innovative cars. This one I think is in damask red, maybe not. Put it in the comments if you know different. Launched in 1970, original prototypes did have the name Velar, so they had testing out in the open. This is a Range Rover, so very early car, probably a Suffix A car. So-called Suffix A's are the early ones, like that one. And then it took Range Rover or Land Rover quite a while to get to the party with a 4-door version. So originally a Swiss company called Monteverdi built the 4-doors. They converted 2-doors to 4-doors with the blessing of Land Rover, and then eventually the Land Rover did get their act together and started producing quite late in life a 4-door version, which is that. So the lesser seen Marina pickup, and this one's in British Leyland special tuning. British Leyland Motor Corporation special tuning livery, if I can say it. That's a treat, isn't it? Somebody's spent a lot of time on that one, and I'll shout out to them. They've done a fabulous job, haven't they? Looks great. So the TC was the, I guess, 70s equivalent to the GTI. So the TC twin carb Morris Marina. This was the one that you had if you wanted a bit more power. I could never afford the insurance on one of these, but if you wanted more power, you went for one of these. This was the sporty one. This ticked the sporty box, complete with a Webasto sunroof. Well, you've really arrived with that, haven't you? So off the back of the relationship with Honda is the Rover SD3. What was that? Honda Ballard. These were actually really well built, really capable cars. I think the lower engine ones, the 213s, had the Honda engine. 216s had the, I'm pretty sure it was the Rover engine. That's a 213, so it's a Honda one. Popular cars, some of them will remember them from Keeping Up Appearances. I think Richard, the husband, had one, but nevertheless, you don't see many these days, and they were street furniture at one time, weren't they? Okay. So another car making use of Landcrab doors is the Austin 3 litre, but it switched from front wheel drive to rear wheel drive, and that transmission tunnel took up quite a bit of space. So for actually quite a big car, the space inside is not quite as much as you would imagine, and really it didn't sell very well at all, unfortunately. I think Raymond Baxter, the TV presenter, was in actual fact in charge of PR at the time with BMC, and I think even he struggled with this one. There's even an ambulance version. Maybe that worked better as an ambulance, which is that one there. Really well represented here. This club, shout out to them, because they do have a great turnout and support this almost forgotten BMC car really well. So brilliant to see those here today, isn't it? Launched in 1962 as the Austin Morris 1100, AD016 was the incredibly successful car. This is the MG version and a 2-door version, and in the first year British registrations were recorded officially by the SMMT, 1965, 3 years after launch. This single car sold 147,000 units. Now, putting that in context, that single vehicle basically was took 14.5% share of the UK market. That is incredible. The Cortina was down, maybe number 3 or 4, but this was the best seller. You can see why when they introduced other body styles, they just continued to prosper. So the owner of this car is clearly a woodworking expert, having come up with a wooden grille for the front of it. It is at heart a traveller with some fiberglass panels in the back to look a bit like a van, and it's towing a lovely little caravan which is also partially wooden. Something, I think it says it weighs only about 150 kilos or something. That's an absolute treat, isn't it? Let's try and get this without falling over, which invariably I'm likely to do, hopefully off camera. That's absolutely lovely, isn't it? So this lovely coloured mint A35 looks an absolute treat. Look at those design features, those little running lights on the top, inside door, the hinges on the outside, no expense spared there. Lovely door handle, and it's got the indicators operated by that switch at the top. There's something about these cars, I just really like the amount of space you've got for such small external dimensions. I think that must be the handbrake down there. It's got to be, isn't it? That metal handbrake, lovely pull strap on the inside of the door. Isn't that an absolute treat? Beautiful. So the Wolseley 1822 version of the Wedge had a very short production run. This one's a special one because it's the first or the earliest known production vehicle from 1974. Now, production of the Wolseley actually finished after only 9 months production. Didn't actually survive, and they continue with Austin and I think with Morris. And this one truly is a rare car. It's rare anyway, but in actual fact it's super rare simply because it's a pre-production model number 15 apparently. Well, there you go. You saw it here on lot 76 Cars First. Fabulous. Apparently rescued from a chicken shed is GBL 343, an Austin A40 pickup registered in 1950. Well, whoever rescued it from the chicken shed, and they've stuck a lovely, is it J40 pedal car in the back, they did a great job with the restoration, didn't they? That looks a treat, doesn't it? So it looks like an MGB GT, but what about those headlamps? Well, they're Cibi units, and the car in actual fact is an MGB GT University Motor Special, an enterprising MG dealer who fitted a Downton kit and those special reshaped front wings and also the Cibi headlamps, and came up with this so-called University Motor Special. So pretty rare cars, I would have thought. Not so many that you would see today on the road, and this is the only one I think I've ever seen. That's lovely. So another Rover cooperation with Honda based on the Legend, but you wouldn't know it necessarily, is the Rover 800. So I think the first cars were D-plated. This is an E. What would that make it? 87. So a relatively early car. In actual fact, this is a top-of-the-line one. I believe it's a Sterling. Now, interestingly enough, while we used the name Sterling as a trim level, in actual fact, the car was sold in the US as a Sterling, so very well appointed as you would expect inside. Beautiful leather upholstery. And a bit of wood there as well for good measure, though it probably doesn't show up too well on camera. But absolutely gorgeous, isn't it? What a survivor. Facelift cars seem to survive very well, but pre-facelift cars, very thin on the ground. I think pretty much the MG Metro was the first return of the MG name after MG production finished in 80. I think this was 83. Looking at the res, that probably bears it out. It might be zircon blue, and it's the MG Metro. So you'd know that it's got plenty of stripes on it. It's got a bit of red inside. Oh, it's got a very 80s backflash on the window. I'm liking that a lot. Doesn't that look an absolute treat? So a couple of the larger bodied Farina cars. This is the Princess 3 litre Mark II. Absolute beauty of a car. Lovely two-tone paintwork. Look at that fantastic trim line on the side. Lovely wood interior. That's a Bobby Dazzler. 3 litre engine, I think in Wolseley format, used by the police extensively. Looks a treat. So we've got a standard Vanguard Vignale Estate. So this one's got the so-called sportsman engine. I'm not sure, I think it's all relative. the term sportsman, but Standard was the company that actually took over Triumph and then decided to use the Triumph name as the stronger brand. This one's actually for sale at the moment. It's a beautiful car. These were used by the RAF bomber crew. The RAF had quite a few of these on their fleet back in the day, finished in RAF colours, and they used them to transport the bomber crews about. This one's in absolutely stunning order. You've got to love that split tailgate at the back. Quite a clever idea. That's lovely, isn't it? So thanks again for joining me on Lot 76 Cars at the BMC and Leyland Show at the British Motor Museum. Some great cars here today, fabulous turnout in the sunny weather. Hope you've enjoyed the video, so please like, share, subscribe and click on notifications so to be informed of my next video. And once again, as always, thanks for watching. So legendary as rally cars is the Landcrab, and we've got one of those, and in fact we've also got another one. Brilliant.